What happens when a beloved daytime TV icon walks onto one of the most opinionated tables on television, and instead of a lighthearted conversation, the atmosphere shifts into something unexpectedly tense, personal, and impossible to ignore. Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout, and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience applauds as Ellen DeGeneres walks out, smiling, waving casually, her usual relaxed energy filling the stage. The hosts at the table greet her, some warmly, some a bit more reserved. Joy Behar leans back slightly in her chair, arms loosely crossed, watching Ellen with a half-smile that doesn't fully commit. Whoopi starts things off, keeping it smooth. "Ellen, it's good to have you here." Ellen nods. "It's good to be here. It's been a while since I've sat at a table like this." Light laughter from the audience. Sunny jumps in upbeat. "We've all been talking about your return to public appearances. People are curious. How are you doing, really?" Ellen exhales slightly, still smiling. "I'm good. I've had time to think, to step back, which, honestly, I hadn't done in years." Joy tilts her head, then leans forward just a little. "Yeah, well, sometimes people are forced to step back." There's a small shift in the room. Not dramatic, but noticeable. Ellen keeps her expression steady. "Sometimes, yeah." Whoopi quickly interjects, trying to keep things neutral. "Well, let's talk about that a little. There was a lot said, a lot reported." Joy interrupts, not loudly but firmly. "A lot confirmed, too." A few audience members react with a soft murmur. Ellen glances at Joy now, directly. "Confirmed or repeated?" Joy shrugs. "When enough people say the same thing, it usually means something's there." Sunny shifts slightly in her seat, sensing where this is heading. "Joy, I think what Ellen is saying is, there's always more than one side to these situations." Joy doesn't back off. "Of course there is. But we're also not talking about one or two complaints. We're talking about a pattern that got pretty public." Ellen's smile fades just a touch, not gone but more controlled now. "Right. And I addressed that. Publicly. More than once." Joy nods, quick and sharp. "You did. But some people felt it was a little packaged." There's a pause. You can feel the audience leaning in now. Ellen tilts her head. "Packaged?" Joy gestures with her hands. "Like a PR response. Not necessarily a personal one." Whoopi steps in again. "Okay, let's." But Ellen speaks before she can finish. "I mean, I went on my own show and talked about it directly. I apologized. I acknowledged what needed to be acknowledged." Joy looks at her steadily. "Yeah, but you were still in control of that environment." That lands. A few audience members let out a quiet, "Oh." Ellen leans back slightly now, crossing one leg over the other. "So what would have made it real enough?" Joy doesn't hesitate. "Maybe not being the one with the microphone and the final word." Sunny raises her eyebrows slightly, glancing between them. "That's a tough standard, though. Most people respond in their own space." Joy turns to Sunny. "Sure. But when you've built a brand around kindness, people expect a certain level of authenticity when things go wrong." Ellen nods slowly. "And I get that. I really do. But I also think people forget that a workplace is made up of hundreds of people. It's not just one person controlling every single interaction." Joy leans in again. "But leadership sets the tone." Ellen responds quickly this time. "And leadership can also be held responsible for things they weren't directly involved in." The tension is no longer subtle. Whoopi raises a hand slightly. "All right, let's just..." Everybody take a breath for a second. A small laugh from the audience helps ease it for half a second. But Joy isn't done. "I'm just saying, Ellen, you had a very specific image. Dancing, laughing, being kind to everyone. And then suddenly we hear stories that don't match that image at all. That's going to raise questions." Ellen looks straight at her. "Of course it does. And it should. But I think what bothered me was how quickly people decided they knew exactly who I was based on headlines." Joy responds instantly. "Well, that's the price of being a public figure." Ellen nods. "It is. But it doesn't make it accurate." There's a brief silence. Sunny tries to pivot slightly. "I think what's interesting here is the gap between perception and reality. That happens a lot in media." Joy turns to her. "Or sometimes perception catches up to reality." Ellen lets out a small breath, almost a quiet laugh, but there's no humor in it. "You really don't like me, do you?" The audience reacts, some gasps, some nervous laughter. Joy smiles, but it's tight. "It's not about liking or not liking. It's about accountability." Ellen nods again, slower this time. "Accountability is important." "I agree with that. But so is fairness." Whoopi leans forward now, voice firmer. All right, we're getting into something real here, and that's fine, but let's keep it respectful. Both women nod, but neither looks away from the other. Ellen speaks again, calmer but more direct. I've spent years trying to create something positive. And yeah, I made mistakes. I've said that. But I also think people forget the good pretty quickly. Joy responds, softer, but still pointed. Or maybe the good was part of the image, and people are now questioning how much of it was real. That line hits harder than anything so far. The audience goes quiet. Ellen's expression changes, just slightly, but enough to notice. So you think it wasn't real? Joy shrugs lightly. I think people are asking that question. And I think it's a fair one. Sunny looks uncomfortable now. I think it's also fair to say that no one is one-dimensional. Whoopi nods. Exactly. People are complicated. But Ellen keeps her focus on Joy. You're not asking. You're implying. Joy meets her gaze. I'm saying what a lot of people are thinking. Ellen pauses, then leans forward slightly. No, you're saying what you think. Let's be honest about that. A louder reaction from the audience this time. Whoopi exhales. Okay, all right, we're going to take a quick break. But the energy doesn't drop. Joy gives a small smile, shaking her head slightly. See, this is what happens when you're not controlling the narrative. Ellen doesn't smile back. Or maybe this is what happens when someone comes in already decided about who I am. The tension sits there, unresolved, as the cameras begin to pull back slightly and the audience noise swells, half excited, half uneasy. And you can tell, this conversation is far from over. The audience noise hasn't fully settled when the show returns from break. There's that familiar clap track, but it feels a little less natural this time, like people are still processing what just happened. Whoopi leans forward slightly, hands together, trying to reset the tone. All right, we're back. And look, we're having a real conversation. That's what this table is about. Ellen sits upright, composed again, but quieter now. Joy is still angled slightly toward her, not confrontational in posture, but clearly not backing down either. Sunny gives a small smile, trying to soften things. Ellen, before the break, we were talking about perception versus reality and how public figures deal with that. I want to ask you something a little more personal. When all of that was happening, what was the hardest part for you? Ellen pauses for a moment before answering. The hardest part, honestly, was feeling like people who didn't know me had already decided who I was. Joy lets out a quiet breath, almost like she expected that answer. Ellen continues, her voice steady. I'm not saying I handled everything perfectly. I didn't. But it went from criticism to something else. It felt like people wanted a version of me that fit the story they were hearing. Joy jumps in, not aggressively, but firmly. But Ellen, that story didn't come out of nowhere. Ellen turns to her again. I didn't say it did. Joy nods. Okay. But when multiple employees come forward, when there are internal investigations, that's not just media creating something. Whoopi raises a hand slightly. Joy, but Joy continues, just a bit quicker now. I'm just trying to understand how you separate what you call perception from what people actually experienced. The audience murmurs again, this time a little louder. Ellen takes a breath. You don't separate it completely. You listen. You take it seriously. And we did. Changes were made. People were held accountable. Joy tilts her head. But not you. That lands sharply. There's an audible reaction, some oohs, a few claps, and a noticeable tension in the air. Sunny immediately leans in. Okay, that's Joy. I think that's a bit. Ellen raises her hand slightly, stopping Sunny. No, it's fine. She looks directly at Joy again. You think I wasn't held accountable? Joy shrugs. I think you were protected. There's a difference. The room goes quiet again. Whoopi shifts in her chair, clearly weighing whether to step in. Ellen's voice drops slightly, not louder, but more focused. I lost my show, Joy. Joy responds quickly. After it had already been on for nearly 2 decades. Ellen nods once. Yeah, and I walked away from it. Joy raises an eyebrow. Did you walk away, or did the situation make it impossible to stay? A few audience members clap at that, while others stay silent. Ellen gives a small, controlled smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. You're very determined to frame this a certain way. Joy leans back slightly. I'm asking questions. That's what we do here. Sunny interjects again, more firmly this time. And we also allow people to answer without being boxed into one narrative. Joy turns to Sunny. I'm not boxing her in. I'm challenging her. Ellen responds before Sunny can continue. It feels like you've already made up your mind. Joy doesn't deny it. I have an opinion. Yes. Ellen nods slowly. Right. There's a pause, long enough to feel uncomfortable. Then Whoopi steps in, her tone more direct now. Let me ask something a little different. Ellen, looking back, is there anything you would do differently? Not in terms of how it was reported, but how things were handled internally. Ellen shifts her gaze to Whoopi, appreciating the change in direction. Yeah, I would have been more present. I would have paid closer attention to what was happening behind the scenes. When you're running something that big, you rely on people. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't check in more. Sunny nods. That's fair. Joy listens, arms crossed again, but she's quieter for a moment. Ellen continues. I trusted that the culture we talked about publicly was being reflected privately. And clearly, in some cases, it wasn't. Joy finally speaks again, but her tone is slightly less sharp, though still skeptical. But do you understand why people felt misled? Ellen answers without hesitation. Yes, I do. That answer actually softens the room a little. But Joy follows up immediately. Then why did it take so long for that acknowledgement to come? The tension creeps back in. Ellen exhales. Because when you're in the middle of something like that, you're also trying to understand it yourself. You're getting information from different sides, trying to figure out what's accurate, what's not. Joy interrupts. But the stories were consistent. Ellen shakes her head slightly. Some were. Some weren't. Joy leans forward again. So you're saying some people exaggerated? Sunny reacts quickly. Joy, but Ellen answers. I'm saying that in any large group of people, you're going to have different experiences. That doesn't mean all of them define the entire environment. Joy looks at her carefully. But the negative ones were strong enough to change your entire career. Ellen holds her gaze. Or strong enough to change how people chose to see me. That line gets a mixed reaction, some applause, some murmurs. Whoopi steps in again, trying to keep balance. All right, let's not turn this into a courtroom. This is a conversation. Joy nods slightly, but she's not backing off emotionally. I just think when you build your entire brand around being kind, people expect consistency. Ellen responds immediately. And I think people expect perfection. Joy shakes her head. No, not perfection. Just alignment. Ellen leans in slightly now. Alignment is impossible every single day, with every single person, in a workplace that size. Joy responds almost instantly. But accountability isn't. There's another pause. The audience is fully locked in now. Sunny looks between them, clearly feeling the weight of the exchange. I think what we're seeing here is two different perspectives on responsibility. And both matter. Whoopi nods. Exactly. And we're not going to solve that in one segment. Ellen sits back again, folding her hands. I'm not here to convince everyone. I know that's not possible. Joy replies, quieter this time. No, but you are here to be questioned. Ellen nods once. And I'm answering. Joy gives a small smile, again not warm, not cold, just firm. And I'm listening. But the look between them says something else entirely. There's still tension. Still something unresolved. Whoopi glances toward the camera, then back at the table. We're going to take another break. As the audience applauds, louder this time, more energized, you can feel it. This isn't just a disagreement anymore. It's personal. The show comes back again, and this time the energy is different. The audience applause is louder, but it's not just excitement, it's anticipation. People know they're watching something that doesn't usually happen this openly on a daytime talk show. Whoopi doesn't smile right away. She looks across the table, then toward Ellen. All right, we're back. And I think it's fair to say this conversation has gotten a little more real than we usually keep it. A few people in the audience laugh nervously. Ellen gives a small nod. Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. Joy sits forward again, hands clasped now on the table instead of leaning back. Her posture has changed, less casual, more direct. Sunny jumps in, clearly trying to ground things before it escalates again. I actually want to take a slightly different angle here, because I think there's something important underneath all of this. Ellen, when everything was happening, did you feel like anyone in the industry defended you publicly? Ellen pauses longer this time. Not really. There's a slight reaction from the audience, some surprised murmurs. Ellen continues. A few people reached out privately. But publicly? No. And that was hard. Joy raises her eyebrows slightly. But isn't that also telling? Sunny reacts immediately. Joy, but Ellen answers first. No, it's not necessarily telling. It's people protect themselves. That's how this industry works. Joy tilts her head. Or they distance themselves for a reason. Ellen's tone tightens just a little. Or they don't want to get pulled into something they don't fully understand. Whoopi steps in, voice calm but firmer than before. Let's be careful with assumptions on both sides. But Joy keeps her eyes on Ellen. You had a lot of powerful friends, Ellen. Big names. And when everything hit, silence. That's not nothing. Ellen nods slowly. I noticed. That simple answer lands heavier than anything loud could have. There's a pause. Sunny leans forward again, softer tone now. That must have felt isolating. Ellen nods. It did. Because it makes you question everything. Not just what people think of you, but what those relationships actually were. Joy responds, not harsh, but still pressing. Or it makes you question your own behavior. Ellen looks back at her, this time without any trace of a smile. I did that too. That stops Joy for half a second. Ellen continues, more openly now. I went over everything. Conversations, decisions, things I said years ago. I asked myself, did I miss something? Did I create an environment where this could happen? And yeah, there are things I wish I had handled differently. The audience is quieter now, listening closely. But what I didn't do, Ellen adds, is become the person that some people decided I was overnight. Joy leans in slightly. But you understand why people felt that shift, right? Ellen responds immediately. I understand why people reacted. I don't agree with all of it. Joy nods. Fair. But public trust isn't just about intent. It's about impact. Sunny softly says, that's true. Ellen looks at Sunny, then back at Joy. And impact can be misunderstood when it's filtered through headlines and anonymous sources. Joy doesn't let that slide. So now we're questioning the people who spoke out. Ellen shakes her head. No, I'm questioning how everything was presented as one clear, simple story. Joy responds quickly. Sometimes it is simple. Ellen leans forward again, matching Joy's energy now. No, it's not. People want it to be simple because it's easier to process. Good person, bad person. That's not how real life works. A noticeable reaction from the audience, this time more supportive. Joy pauses, then speaks more slowly. But when multiple people describe similar experiences, that's not just simplification. Ellen nods. I agree. And that's why changes were made. Joy immediately follows. After it became public. Ellen doesn't hesitate. Yes. After it became visible on that scale. Joy raises her hand slightly. Which is exactly the issue. Whoopi exhales, clearly feeling the loop they're in. All right, we're going in circles a bit. But Ellen speaks again, this time more direct than at any point before. Can I ask you something, Joy? Joy nods. Sure. Ellen leans in slightly. Do you believe people can grow after being publicly criticized like that? The question shifts the tone instantly. Joy doesn't answer right away. I think people can grow, she says carefully. But I also think growth requires full acknowledgement. Ellen responds. And you don't think I've done that? Joy looks at her straight. I think you've acknowledged parts of it. That answer hits harder than a direct no. Ellen's expression tightens again. What part do you think I'm missing? There's a silence. The audience is completely still now. Joy takes a breath before answering. I think you still see yourself as misunderstood, more than responsible. A wave of reactions, some claps, some wow, some silence. Ellen sits back slowly, absorbing that. Then she nods. That's interesting. Joy doesn't move. It's honest. Ellen looks down for a brief second, then back up. You know what's interesting to me? Joy gestures slightly. What? Ellen's voice is calm, but sharper now. You've been talking this entire time like you know exactly what happened behind the scenes of my show. Joy responds immediately. I'm going off what was reported and confirmed. Ellen shakes her head slightly. You're going off what you chose to believe from what was reported. The audience reacts again, this time louder. Whoopi raises her hand again. All right, but Joy cuts in, more energized now. No, I'm going off multiple sources, investigations. This isn't just gossip. Ellen doesn't raise her voice, but there's intensity now. And you think that gives you the full picture? Joy leans forward, matching her. I think it gives enough of a picture to ask hard questions. Ellen responds instantly. And I've answered them. Joy fires back. Have you, or have you defended yourself? That line sparks the biggest reaction so far. Applause, gasps, even a few people standing slightly in their seats. Sunny looks genuinely concerned now. Okay, we need to. This is getting. But Ellen doesn't back down. I'm allowed to defend myself. Joy nods. And people are allowed to question you. Ellen leans in just a bit more. And you're allowed to do it in a way that isn't already decided. Joy's voice tightens. I'm not here to make you comfortable. Ellen answers without missing a beat. And I'm not here to be judged by someone who wasn't there. That lands like a final blow in the exchange. The audience erupts, half clapping, half reacting in shock. Whoopi immediately steps in, louder now. All right, enough. She looks between both of them. We're not turning this into a personal back and forth. This is a discussion. But the tension is at its peak now. Joy leans back again, crossing her arms. Ellen sits back too, but her expression is completely different from when she first walked out. No smile. No lightness. Just focus. Whoopi looks toward the camera again, clearly trying to regain control. We're going to take one last break. As the audience applause rolls in loud, chaotic, energized, you can feel it clearly now. This isn't just a tough interview anymore. It's a clash. When the show returns from the final break, the energy in the room hasn't cooled. It's settled into something heavier. The applause is still there, but it's uneven, like the audience isn't sure whether they're reacting to entertainment or something more serious. Whoopi looks directly into the camera first, then back at the table. All right, welcome back. This has been a very honest conversation. A few scattered laughs from the audience, but they fade quickly. Ellen sits still, hands folded loosely, posture straight. Joy is no longer leaning forward. She's calmer on the surface, but still firm, still engaged. Sunny takes a breath before speaking. I think what's clear is that this conversation touched a nerve, not just here, but probably for a lot of people watching at home. Ellen nods slightly. Yeah, I think so. Sunny continues. And whether people agree with you or not, you showed up. And that matters. Joy glances at Sunny, then back at Ellen. It does matter. I'll give you that. Ellen gives a small nod of acknowledgement. Thank you. There's a brief pause, less tense than before, but still charged. Whoopi leans forward again. I want to ask one final question before we wrap this up. And I want it to be something that actually moves things forward. She looks at Ellen. If someone out there is still unsure about you, still questioning everything they heard, what would you say to them right now? The audience goes quiet again. Ellen takes a second, then another. I'd say, I understand why you feel that way. That alone softens the room. I'd say you don't know me personally, and that's okay. But I also think it's important to remember that no one is just one story. No one is just one headline. Joy listens without interrupting this time. Ellen continues. I made mistakes. I've said that. I've learned from it. And I've taken time to actually reflect, not just publicly, but privately. And I think that matters more than anything I could say on a stage. There's light applause, genuine this time, not reactive. Joy exhales slowly, then speaks. I can respect reflection. I really can. Ellen looks at her. But, she asks quietly. Joy gives a small, honest smile. But I still think public figures have to accept that once something is out there, people don't just forget. Ellen nods. I'm not asking them to. Joy tilts her head slightly. Then what are you asking for? Ellen answers without hesitation. Fairness. That word hangs in the air. Joy studies her for a moment, then nods once. Fair enough. It's not agreement, but it's the closest they've come all show. Whoopi leans back slightly, letting the moment breathe. All right. That's a place we can end on. The audience applauds, this time more unified, though still mixed in emotion. Sunny smiles softly. This was definitely a conversation people are going to be talking about. Joy adds, almost under her breath, but still audible. They already are. A few people in the audience laugh. Whoopi turns to Ellen. Thank you for coming in and staying in it. Ellen gives a small smile. Thanks for having me. There's no hug, no overly warm send-off, just a nod between them. As Ellen stands and waves to the audience, the applause grows louder again. Some people stand, others remain seated, still processing. The camera follows her for a moment as she exits, then cuts back to the table. But even after she's gone, the atmosphere lingers. Whoopi looks at the co-hosts. Well, that happened. The audience laughs again, this time with a bit more release. Sunny shakes her head slightly. That was intense. Joy leans back in her chair. Necessary, though. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. Maybe, but not easy. The show begins to wrap, but you can already feel that this moment is bigger than the segment itself. And sure enough, within minutes of the broadcast ending, clips start circulating online. Short clips. Heated moments. The sharpest exchanges. Ellen saying, "You've already decided who I am." Joy responding, "I'm asking what people are thinking." And that final clash. "I'm not here to make you comfortable. And I'm not here to be judged by someone who wasn't there." Those lines spread fast. On platforms like YouTube, X, Twitter, and TikTok, the conversation explodes. Some people side with Ellen. She stayed calm the whole time. Joy was way too aggressive. She owned her mistakes. What more do people want? Others strongly support Joy. She asked the questions no one else would. Accountability isn't comfortable. This is what real interviews should look like. Clips rack up millions of views in hours. Comment sections turn into debates. Think pieces start appearing, breaking down body language, tone, word choices. Even other talk show hosts begin referencing the moment. Behind the scenes, reports start to surface. Producers discussing whether the segment went too far. Network executives reviewing audience feedback. Some praising the authenticity. Others concerned about how heated it became. There are even rumors, unconfirmed, that the segment wasn't expected to go in that direction at all. That it was supposed to be lighter, safer. But it didn't stay that way. And that's exactly why people can't stop talking about it. Later that evening, Ellen reportedly leaves quietly, no press, no extended backstage interviews. Joy, on the other hand, addresses it briefly after the show. "We had a real conversation," she says. And sometimes real conversations are uncomfortable. That clip spreads too. By the next morning, headlines are everywhere. Explosive clash on daytime TV. Ellen versus Joy. A conversation that crossed the line? Was it accountability or confrontation? And viewers keep picking sides. But one thing almost everyone agrees on: it didn't feel scripted. It didn't feel controlled. It felt real. And in daytime television, that's rare. Back at the show, the hosts return the next day with a noticeably calmer tone. The topic is briefly acknowledged, but not deeply revisited. Just enough to recognize it happened. Not enough to reopen it. Because some conversations, once they reach that level, don't need continuation. They leave their mark. And this one did. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Joy justified in pushing that hard? Or did she cross a line? Did Ellen take accountability or avoid the real issue? Drop your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.